Imagine you're a boy who just entered high school, but you're considered the most hated person in the school. Deep down, you're actually proud of it because it creates a kind of social shield that no one dares to cross. But that's not really the case. In fact, it's quite the opposite. You're actually very popular. All the students admire you and want to be your friend, but they're too intimidated to talk to you because of your rough personality. One day, a young man arrives at his locker and freezes upon discovering a misfortune letter inside. Honda remembers how, during his school years, he used to receive many such letters that he had to forward to 3 friends, or else misfortune would fall upon him. Desperate, Honda realizes he hasn't read the contents of the letter yet. Believing it might be a challenge to a fight, which he has no intention of doing, he decides to throw the letter in the trash without reading it, sparing himself from any trouble. His classmates witness this and assume it must have been a love letter, and they're amazed that he didn't even read it. After throwing it away, Honda is scolded by his classmate Yuri, who tells him the letter was written by their shy classmate, Michael Mori. Still uninterested in the letter, Honda asks Michael to reveal its contents. The girl invites him to meet after class in the gym. Honda starts wondering what Michael wants, and all the possibilities he imagines are bad, from public humiliation to a nervous breakdown. Nervously, he decides to write a letter to Michael, but he doesn't remember her name, so he gives the letter to Yuri instead, who has an unusually large head, which no one has commented on, so he assumes it's a stylistic choice. Yuri reads the letter but can't understand Honda's handwriting, so she mistakenly thinks the letter is meant for her and falls in love with him. Not liking the idea of helping Michael win his heart, she becomes jealous. The day passes and there's no response from Michael. So Honda decides to fulfill his classmates' challenge and goes behind the gym, where everyone is waiting. Honda prepares for whatever his mind fears might happen. But when Michael tries to give him a love letter, a jealous Yuri stops her, and the 2 girls start fighting. Honda walks away but advises them to prioritize their friendship above all. Michael finally gives the letter to our hero, who coldly tells her that her handwriting is ugly. At the end of the day, the 2 girls reconcile and decide to take calligraphy classes together. Yu Inchi, one of Honda's classmates, known by everyone as the president, is an ambitious young man who has always served as class president due to his strong sense of duty. However, during this year's elections, Inchi finds out that Honda has also been nominated. Honda wants nothing to do with the role, as it would force him to socialize and cater to his classmates' whims. He hopes to lose gracefully, knowing Inchi is better suited for the job. But Inchi is shocked when the vote count ends in a tie. Honda suggests breaking the tie with a game of rock, paper, scissors. Inchi agrees but insists on just 1 round. Honda agrees and tells Inchi he'll pick rock. Inchi assumes it's a trick and chooses scissors, losing the match. He demands another try. Again, Honda says he'll choose rock, and Inchi, thinking it's another bluff, loses again. In the end, Honda resigns from the position and walks away. This becomes a lesson in humility for Inchi, especially when he discovers that Honda actually voted for him. Ultimately, a now humble Inchi steps down and names Honda the new class president, who is very upset about it. But Inchi tells him they'll work as a team, with Honda as the face of the presidency and Inchi handling all the paperwork. Ryo Mikito, once the most popular boy in school, adored by all the girls and admired by his peers, saw his status challenged when Honda arrived and became the most popular student. Curious about his rival's popularity, Ryo asks the girls what they see in Honda. They explain that Honda is charismatic and interesting, more so than Ryo, who's merely good-looking. Honda doesn't hear what they say but assumes they're insulting him and goes on with his tasks. Determined to uncover Honda's secret, Ryo follows him after school. A series of misunderstandings leads to Ryo's clothes getting dirty. When Honda arrives at the fashion district, he attracts attention from photographers who want him to model their clothes. Mistaking Ryo for a homeless person, Honda, he gives him clothes which convinces Ryo that he's a wonderful person. Soon, Ryo quits the modeling life and becomes another admirer of our protagonist. Yin assigns Honda the task of delivering important documents to a boy named Akane, a classmate who hasn't been to school in a while. Since this is one of his duties as class president, he can't refuse to carry out the task. While looking at the boy's photo, Honda notices his feminine appearance, which makes him realize why Akane might have dropped out of school. When our protagonist arrives at Akane's house, he is met by an intimidating figure, a muscular man carrying a baseball bat on his shoulder. When Honda asks the thug about the boy, the huge guy responds, "You're talking to him." Tired of being bullied by both boys and girls alike, Akane decided to drop out of school. But after seeing a TV commercial, he decided to train his body and become a tough guy. He threatens our protagonist with his bat, smashing a nearby pole. But Honda doesn't react, which Akane interprets as a sign of composure and control. In reality, Honda didn't react because the strike was so fast he had no time to move. The boy tells Honda he doesn't plan to return to school because he's become the strongest thug in the neighborhood and was even arrested once. But frankly, Honda doesn't care. He just wants to deliver the documents and leave. Akane takes this indifference as a challenge and, sensing confidence and superiority in Honda, hesitates to attack him. When a rival gang surrounds them, Honda tries to walk away, but both the gang and Akane interpret that as defiance. Combined with Honda's strange reputation as a calligrapher, which for some reason makes everyone think he's dangerous, the gang backs off from the fight. Moved by Honda's attitude, the boy decides to return to school, become our protagonist's bodyguard, and eventually his friend. Kondo is the most normal student at school. Nothing he is or does makes him stand out, and that makes him proud. However, during cooking class, Kondo finds himself stuck among a group of special people. Jinchi, the class president, Ryo, the model, Sui, the guy who came back to school, and the most mysterious of all, Honda. This makes Kondo nervous, as he was always content with just being generic. However, Kondo realizes his classmates are also normal in their own way, though he finds it strange that all three are obsessed with making Honda happy, something that clearly makes our protagonist uncomfortable. The Honda Club tries to cook something delicious for him, but Honda couldn't care less, which only makes them try harder. Annoyed, Honda prepares a pudding using strange ingredients, and only Kondo realizes the absurdity of the situation. Tensions among the club members escalate into a fight, and Honda accidentally starts a fire. Kondo puts it out and is stunned when the club members genuinely believe Honda started the fire to stop the fight. Eventually, they all try the pudding, which tastes horrible, but since Honda made it, they assume it's just an exotic flavor their palates aren't yet ready for, so they keep eating it. Kondo gives in to the madness and joins them at the table. Despite his aloofness, there is one person Honda considers his best friend, Kawafuji. But as has already been made clear, Honda is a sociopath who doesn't know how to be friends with people. So his version of friendship with Kawafuji is from a distance. In class, Miyoko Kinjo, one of Honda's classmates, loses her eraser near him. Believing she'll cause a scene if he returns the dirty eraser, Honda gives her a new one, which causes her to fall in love with him. On the way home, Honda spends time with Kawafuji, hiding every time someone passes by. Since Honda believes everyone hates him, he prefers to keep his friendship with Kawafuji a secret to avoid ruining his friend's reputation. And yes, it sounds incredibly silly, but that doesn't matter, so go ahead and subscribe. However, Kawafuji knows the truth. Since they were kids, they've always been friends. But when a girl asked Kawafuji to deliver a love confession to Honda, Kawafuji lied and told him that the girl insulted him, which is what turned Honda into the person he is today. Kawafuji now wonders if it's time to tell Honda the truth. In Honda's school, a student not only admires our quiet hero, but wants to become him. Someone is selling poems with Honda's calligraphy in the park, and both he and the rest of the club know it's a fake. Honda doesn't say anything or defend himself. He's just offended by the bad calligraphy of the fake Honda. Honda's club, on the other hand, is mortified because they know our hero would never sell his art in the park, mainly because they spy on him and know every one of his movements. The group decides to investigate, dragging Kondo with them, who becomes increasingly surprised and slightly scared by his new friend's obsession with Honda. In the park, the boys find the imposter and beat him up, despite Kondo saying violence is not the answer. The imposter admits he admires Honda so much that he decided to become him, copying his poses and movements. But unfortunately, he can't imitate his facial expressions because of his crooked teeth, unlike our protagonist's perfect smile. In the park, the imposture seems to work, and soon the imposter is surrounded by Honda's admirers. This overwhelms the young man, and he removes the mask, revealing he is a fake. Finally, when the club returns with the imposter, they find one of his calligraphy pieces corrected by Honda with a warning that if he's going to imitate him, he should improve. Later, the school is shocked to find out that Honda is dating an older woman, and all the female students suffer broken hearts, even though they never had a chance to begin with. But you know how they are. One of them even writes a curse on Honda's desk. However, this doesn't bother the young man, since to him it's normal to be hated. One student, Miyoko Kinjo, decides to end her life and threatens to jump from the school balcony. While everyone tries to stop her, Honda, unaware of the situation, goes looking for another desk but doesn't find one he likes, so he decides to keep the scratch one. This moves Miyoko, who reveals she was the one who wrote the curse, believing Honda chose the desk because of her. She gives up on jumping, and everything returns to normal when the school finds out the woman with Honda was actually his mother. Honda's mother attends a meeting with the teachers, who recommend that her son communicate more with his classmates. Wanting to improve, Honda tries to talk to his friends, but they only understand what they want to understand, and the young man fails to have a proper conversation with anyone. However, he manages a small conversation with Kondo about how beautiful Japan is. Kondo stops to listen and continues the chat, making our hero very happy. Honda arrives home proud of his achievement, but feels his mother doesn't care much and keeps eating dinner. The student council president, a strong and determined young woman, has declared war against all the men in the school, siding with the girls and defending their customs and way of dressing. However, she has a huge problem in front of her. The most manly man in the entire school, the very symbol of masculinity, who for some reason is our protagonist. Trying to ruin his reputation, the president convinces two students famous for their attraction to the opposite sex to seduce and trap our hero. The two girls agree, but when they are about to seduce our protagonist, he gives them a speech warning that if they taste his flesh, it will be too much for them, and they won't be able to handle it. The two young women are affected by his words and decide to walk away. As they leave, we discover Honda was actually talking to a couple of cats that wanted some of his lunch meat. The girls return empty-handed to the president and tell her they've decided to change their way of life thanks to our protagonist's words. The president gets fed up and simply captures Honda, keeping him prisoner in her office, where she forces him to wear the school's female uniform, which, according to her, would neutralize the masculine aura he gives off. Jinchi tries to help our protagonist until he imagines Honda dressed as a girl and thinks it's not such a bad idea. Honda escapes from the restraints and is chased all over the school, only to end up falling down the stairs with the president. As usual, the president ends up falling in love with our protagonist and reconsiders her stance on men. Honda, on the other hand, wakes up with amnesia, not remembering anything about his personality. The next day, the new Honda arrives at school, a more social Honda. Confident and talkative, the new Honda is not well liked by his friends. Apparently, no one enjoys this new version of our bro, since everyone preferred the mysterious and quiet Honda, everyone except Miyoko, who still wants to kiss him. But the girl's intensity is so overwhelming that she even scares off the womanizing version of Honda. After reading a manga, Honda's friends come to the conclusion that the blow to his head caused amnesia, and that only another blow can bring back the Honda they respect and admire. Despite some doubts, they finally decide to hit him and chase him through the school with clubs. This causes our protagonist to fall down the stairs again and regain his memory, along with the realization that even his friends hate him so much they preferred to beat him up. Everything returns to normal, and life goes on for our heroes. Feeling a bit guilty about his friend's lack of social skills, Kawafuji decides to invite Honda to hang out after school. Since Honda can't do anything like a normal person, which is starting to become concerning, he wears a long wig disguise so no one recognizes him and ruins Kawafuji's reputation. Kawafuji, on the other hand, surprises Honda by inviting another friend to join them, the young Hasegawa. Honda makes up a fake name and pretends to be a foreign student from the United States, joining the fun. During the outing, Honda proves skilled at games like darts due to his calligraphy experience, but is a total failure at any sports-related games. During a break, Honda and Hasegawa talk, and our hero seems to be having a good time. However, a group of bullies starts bothering Hasegawa, so Honda, still wearing his school uniform, scares them off. Fearing his true identity will be discovered, Honda flees the scene. The next day, they meet again at school, but although Honda tries to be friendly with Hasegawa, the boy runs away in fear of Honda's intimidating reputation. As Kawafuji says, this only makes Honda's social life worse. Later, we meet another student whose life revolves around our hero, the runner Joss, Shino, Kotaro, whatever his name is. This guy is the best runner in the athletics club, although many say that's not much of an accomplishment, since the club isn't very good to begin with. However, thanks to Kotaro, the club has potential, if only he could get Honda out of his head. Kotaro transferred to Honda's school, even though it's not known for its track team, just to follow our hero, whom he considers his sworn enemy. Years ago, because of a stomach problem, Kotaro lost a race to Honda, who didn't even realize he had won. But that defeat stuck with Kotaro. Since then, he's been chasing Honda in hopes of a rematch that never came. During training, Kotaro meets the fake Honda, and the two bond over their shared connection to the real Honda. The fake Honda agrees to race him, and Kotaro wins, finally closing that chapter of his life. Now he's ready to help his friends win the upcoming track tournaments. However, during one of the practices, Kotaro sprints toward Honda and takes advantage of the moment to defeat him, only to realize our hero was just running away from a dog that now turns its attention and chases Kotaro instead. Later, Tsugumi, one of Honda's classmates and an expert in palm reading, takes the opportunity, along with the rest of the group, to read our hero's future. When she reads Honda's palm, she discovers he's a person with deep inferiority complexes and that a tough but otherwise normal life awaits him. However, this reading doesn't match the image the others have of Honda, so she decides to lie and tell them what they want to hear. Not realizing that Honda himself is listening, Tsugumi doesn't understand. How can someone so strange and enigmatic have such an ordinary future? It shouldn't apply to someone like him. But after lying, she quietly thanks Honda for making her realize how much she still has to learn. After failing a test, Honda's group has to study for the retake exam, so they all gather at Sui's house to review. Among them is Yunchi, who despite placing first in the exam, generously helps his friends study. But the group starts wondering, what rank did Honda get? If Yunchi got first place, it's impossible that Honda came second. After all, he's supposed to be the best in class. Eventually, they conclude that Honda, in his usual weird way, must have intentionally gotten some questions wrong just to avoid standing out. The study session turns out to be as bizarre as expected. Questions are based on what Honda would do, or even math problems involving numbers related to Honda, because, well, Honda. When the exam day arrives, everyone except Yuichi is prepared to take the test. That includes Kotaro the runner, the fake Honda, and to everyone's surprise, the real Honda himself. Everyone wonders why Honda is even taking a makeup test if he's the top student in class. But there's no time to find out. The test is about to begin. During the exam, everyone imitates Honda. When he drops his pencil, they all drop theirs, creating an absurdly annoying noise. At the end of the day, everyone manages to recover their grades and realizes that Honda never needed to take the test. He was only there to support them emotionally. This makes them admire him even more. On the other hand, Jay ends up scoring a 0 on the makeup test. Kiriyama Kazumi is the school librarian, in charge of a lonely, desolate place no one ever visits, except for our hero. Kazumi finds in. Supposedly, she, Kazumi, is in love with Honda, and even uses her own money to stock up the calligraphy section of the library, hoping our protagonist will visit again, even though they've never spoken a word to each other. One day, she slips a romance novel among Honda's books. When Honda checks it out, he quietly walks away. Since Honda's friends are complete psychos, they know his routines inside and out, and have already deduced that Kazumi is buying books for him. They decide to help her by recommending books they think Honda would like, except they really just recommend their own favorites. Kazumi takes their advice and restocks the library with donations from students who are quick to contribute once they learn the books are for our protagonist. The library, now replenished, becomes a busy place again, forcing Kazumi to carry out her duties as librarian, which actually makes her happy. However, because it's now so crowded, Honda stops coming, so Kazumi has to wait until the end of the day for him to return his books. When she asks what he thought of the romance novel, he says he read a bit and liked the librarian character. Kazumi interprets this as a message from Honda, encouraging her to focus on her librarian duties, and she vows to become the best librarian in the school. Her first task? Letting him know that there will be no more calligraphy books, as she now needs to restock other sections. This makes Honda a bit sad, but Kazumi, feeling proud, gets back to work. Later, Kawafuji convinces Honda to join the rest of the class on a trip via bullet train to help him make friends. During the trip, the group meets their counterparts from rival Shiro School, led by the charismatic Ichima. Each of Honda's friends meets their alternate version: the bully, the model, the class president, even Kondo meets his normal guy double. These two are the only ones who actually get along, as the rest of the groups clash in over-the-top rivalries. Even Honda is impressed by Ichima, unaware that the popular student actually sees Honda as his equal, and his rival. As tensions escalate, the students begin facing off against their counterparts, while Ichima and Honda have a more philosophical conversation. Ichima asks Honda how he handles the social pressure of being the king of the school. Honda answers humbly, though the truth is, he never considered himself popular. Meanwhile, as the battles go on, Honda's friends realize they're not so different from their Shiro counterparts. Ichima eventually offers Honda his friendship, but Honda declines, thinking it would hurt Ichima's reputation to be friends with someone so unpopular. The Shiro students take it as an insult, but Ichima calms them down and everyone makes peace, except Kondo's counterpart, who refuses to give up his secondary character role and attacks Honda, only to get punched. Ichima apologizes and the groups reconcile. None of them notice, however, that during the scuffle, Honda fell into the garden pond. Meanwhile, Honda's biology teacher insists on dissecting frogs for the upcoming class, but school policy and student complaints are in the way. The teacher turns to Honda, believing that if the most popular student agrees, the rest will follow. Honda doesn't want to dissect frogs, but his opinion doesn't matter. Everyone just interprets his words however they like. Believing Honda has given his approval, the teacher opens the floor to a vote. The students vote, and, based on the class president's twisted interpretation of Honda's words, the majority agree to the dissection. The class begins, but the moment they see the frogs, everyone regrets it. No one can bring themselves to dissect. Even Honda has a panic attack trying to start. He runs off and faints. The students, moved by this show of humanity, decide to release the frogs. The teacher, witnessing this, realizes the lesson Honda gave them was more valuable than any he could have taught. Later, Honda wakes up in the infirmary, only to be attacked by his frog. The next day, when Yunchi is on Honda watching duty, he discovers that our hero is fleeing from a mysterious stalker. Yunchi tells the rest of the group, who immediately become concerned for their idol's safety. They begin tracking his notes and realize Honda has changed his route home, likely out of fear of being followed. The next day, the group decides to catch Honda's stalker and protect him. Despite their efforts, and even with help from Miyoko, Honda's unofficial protector, known as the Eraser for eliminating all of his fans, they fail to uncover who the stalker is. Even when Miyoko captures Kazumi the librarian, everyone gathers thinking they've discovered the stalker. But Honda confronts them all, asking them to stop following him, because every day, one of them stalks him, and he has to change his route every day just to go get a drink with Kawafuji. Honda yells at them to leave him alone, but the group only understands one thing: the word friends. They get excited when they realize their hero actually considers them his real friends. Meanwhile, Kondo starts to feel something strange, suspicious looks and mood swings from what used to be his classmates. It feels odd to him, since he doesn't think anything he's done should attract attention. He's just an ordinary guy. But when he sits on his desk, he finds a letter from a girl inviting him to meet after school, and he wonders what it might mean. The rest of Honda's army, as they now call themselves, tell him not to worry about the letter and to give love a chance. That's when Kondo realizes why everyone has been looking at him differently, because he's no longer just a regular guy. He's now part of Honda's army, and even more, he's about to have a girlfriend. However, the letter turns out to be a trap. The girl who called him out just tells him to stay away from Honda's army because someone as ordinary as him doesn't deserve to be part of such a special group. This obviously hurts Kondo. Despite his friend's efforts to comfort him, he decides to go out and get some air. That's when he runs into Honda, who is returning from picking flowers. The two talk, although Honda is a bit scared of Kondo, having misinterpreted many of their past interactions. Eventually, they have a heart-to-heart, and Kondo understands that Honda is special, and so is he. He gives him a note he had written earlier. They part ways, and when Honda reads the note with his friends, the ink has smudged from Kondo's sweat, making it look more like an insult than a message of friendship. Later, we meet the school's manga club, a trio of students who specialize in drawing beautiful women for their projects, though sadly their work doesn't sell very well. When the club's funding is at risk, the members decide to create a female character based on Plot A to boost sales and prevent the student council from shutting them down. Rumors spread that the character is based on none other than Komi-san. They go looking for our hero to get his permission to use his image. Honda appears in the club room and unknowingly throws out the boxes on the table, which contain the original character designs. Realizing what happened, the group chases after the garbage truck, but can't catch up, until Honda himself, feeling guilty, manages to retrieve the originals. Everyone celebrates the recovery, and Honda is shocked to discover one of the drawings portrays him as a beautiful girl. The school's cultural festival is about to begin, and for some reason, the student council president decides the whole event should revolve around Honda. The class tries to come up with an activity, but with too many options, Honda has to decide. Overwhelmed by the pressure, he panics and runs away. As he calms down, the president asks him to handle the festival's posters, something he agrees to because it's what he's good at. He appreciates the chance, even though he doesn't think he's very talented. When he returns to class, he finds that his classmates have decided on a mix of a musical, a play, and a maid cafe. On his way home, Honda witnesses someone bullying a student and asks Sujitui to help the kid. The next day, everyone's ready for the festival. Fuji goes to watch the class play. It's a mess. No one remembers their lines, and the actors freeze on stage. But when Honda appears, playing Queen Isabella, the crowd erupts in applause. Still, Honda is super embarrassed that Kawafuji saw him like that and runs off. Meanwhile, a group of delinquents arrives at the school looking for Honda. Ichimai and his crew also show up and confront the delinquents in Honda's classroom, unaware that our hero is backstage rehearsing. He's angry that his role has so few lines, but still practices them. Back in the classroom, everyone is about to clash when our protagonist bursts in, shouting his lines. As always, everyone interprets what they want to hear, and the delinquents reveal they were only looking for Honda to make him their leader. Things return to normal. At the end of the festival, the manga club is saved thanks to the sales of the Honda manga, or so they say. Honda wins the award for Best Student and is honored with a samurai helmet. However, Kawafuji steps on stage and demands that, if Honda really considers him a friend, he should give him the prize. This puts Honda in a dilemma. He wants to give Kawafuji the helmet, but doesn't want to ruin the reputation of this boy rises when everyone finds out they are friends. The rest of the school has no idea who Kawafuji is, so it's revealed that only Honda considers him popular. Honda doesn't understand what's going on until Kawafuji points out that the whole school has come together to defend him and protect his crown, showing him that he was never actually unpopular. The next day, Honda and Kawafuji head to school together, and when they arrive, they meet up with the rest of their friends. For the first time, our protagonist feels truly comfortable among them. And so this beautiful anime, which feels like a male version of Komi-san, comes to an end. If you have any thoughts or opinions, let me know in the comments. And if you want to recommend other series, you know what to do. Drop them down below. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. That really helps too. See you next time. Ciao.